Hi, and welcome to part 3 in my top 50 storylines comic books. These are books from my collection. Everybody's doing a top 50 list. I wanted to do something different. I didn't want to do individual issues. I wanted to do storylines. My first one is about the X-Men, and you can find that in my videos section. My second one covered two of my favorite solo heroes, Spider-Man, Daredevil. This one's going to be a little different. It's going to have two sections. One's going to be on independent books, books that I've loved that aren't made by DC or Marvel. So I'll have 5 of those. The other 5 in this top 10 are going to be big events. So the opposite of that, right? The big Marvel and maybe one really great big DC event that I love. The rules for this game are twofold. Number one, it has to have at least 2 issues in it to be considered a storyline. So solo issues don't work. Number 2, the rule is I need to own the majority or a significant portion of that storyline, which has eliminated a lot of stories that I can't afford or I haven't gotten around to buying yet. So I'm going to start with my top favorite indie character ever, and of course you know that it has to be this green guy right here. I love Savage Dragon. I'm a big fan, and I've been talking a lot about him lately, just because I want to make sure everybody knows that I'm a freak for Erik Larsen and this character. The first storyline I want to talk about is these first 3 issues. It was a little mini-series to get the character going. This is where you start with this character. It has to be. It's exciting. It's interesting. You get a character with a wonderful amnesia backstory, so we don't really know what he was before this, but we do know who he is internally, right? Because he's going to be making decisions about what he thinks is important, and he wants to use his powers to do some good. He gets hooked into the police very early and decides he wants to use these abilities that he has to do something better. So I really, really do like the internal motivation for this character. He's well motivated, and he cares passionately about people, and innocent people in particular. My first big event is actually one of the smaller events that I'm going to be sharing with you. It's the new Fantastic Four. For anybody who was a kid in the 90s and reading comic books in the 90s, this was a fun gimmick. And in fact, it even says here on the top, the joke is, it's the world's most commercial comic book magazine. There was a 3-issue storyline where the Fantastic Four went missing, and their computer in their tower had an automatic response, which was to collect 4 characters from other parts of Marvel to bring together to form the new Fantastic Four to help rescue the originals. So, of course, Marvel picked their 4 most popular characters, Ghost Rider, Hulk, Wolverine, and Spider-Man, to be the leaders of this new team. It's a very funny storyline. It's not super serious, and getting these 4 together was highly entertaining. My next big indie storyline comes from Y the Last Man. And if you haven't read Y the Last Man, it's a powerful story of, the male species being wiped out on the planet Earth, except for one guy and his monkey. This is trade number 5. I have most of this whole storyline, but this particular storyline covers issues 24 through 31 in the comic books. And I like it because it really focuses in on the characters. It's a very Lost-like storyline where you get flashbacks as well as moments where you're in the present, and the characters are working their way to a laboratory in San Francisco. There's some pieces of the story that are in a church where you get to have sort of drama centered around faith, and you get to see characters dealing with being in a new sort of Garden of Eden, where some people think it's very heavenly and some people think it's, obviously for Yorick there's some hell on earth elements. And then you get to see the backstories of his sister, Hero. You get a little story involved with the agent that's protecting him. I believe it's Agent 33. It's just really, really well done. And you really get some key information about what's happening, the science, some of the science behind it, and it has huge impacts going forward, whereas there's a great cliffhanger at the end. So trade number 5 is a really great place to take that storyline up a notch. On to another great Marvel storyline. I absolutely love Marvels. This is a wonderful look at sort of the lifespan of Marvel as a comic book company. The artwork is only rivaled, though, by a great story. where you have this journalist who's sort of there at key moments in Marvel's history, whether it's the reveal that there are mutants in the world, or the death of Gwen Stacy, which I've talked about before. It's just a great storyline, which, by the way, is part of issue 0 from this series as well. You get this, I mean, I love how you get to see Spider-Man's feet on the glass and people inside looking at it, and just what a great cover. And then, of course, the moment when the Silver Surfer and Galactus come to Earth. Really, really just an iconic set of stories, retold sort of from the point of view of the common everyday person living in New York and dealing with it. This comic book, 100 Bullets, which is lights out. I do not own all 100 issues yet, but I'm getting very close. This is the first storyline that I'm recommending, which is really just the first 3 issues. If you buy the first trade, I think it covers 9 or 10 issues maybe. The first 3 is the first main storyline, and it centers on this girl, Dizzy Cordova, and she's a huge part of this comic book going forward, but in this first storyline, it's really setting up what is the 100 Bullets? Why would you get a briefcase with an untraceable gun and the freedom to commit revenge? It's a really powerful morality story. The simple setup of having a story where the main drama happens in here, right? Do I commit murder? Am I still me when I commit murder? That's a powerful idea. How do you not make a list of big, great events and not include Secret Wars? It's just iconic, and I'm a huge fan of the art, a huge fan of the story. Of course, I have read these books until I have beat them up. I finally bought myself a trade so that I could stop reading them. You can see how faded some of mine are. The best part about mine is that so far I have kept this issue in very good condition. I've done very well with this book. But I think issue 8 is really overrated. It's just because of a vital key. I think these covers, for me, as a fan of the story, this dude is what it's all about. Dr. Doom is killer in this storyline. I love that this planet could be built by a god so that heroes and villains could battle it out. And Dr. Doom is like, nah, that's not me. I want the big ring. If there's a god up there with the power to build a planet, that's what I want. I don't want this piddly heroes and villains garbage. He just absolutely turns his back on the whole thing and is like, no, I'm going to kill the god. And that is such a badass Dr. Doom moment. I'm back to Savage Dragon again. This guy's amazing. I love Savage Dragon, and I had to do the first storyline because it's iconic, but then I also want to do another one from that run because there are so many great stories that appeal to me. This is one that I love. These 4 issues are issues 18 through 21. And why I like them is, for me, there are 2 key villains in Savage Dragon's world. There is the Overlord, this bad guy that we're looking at here with the mask. And there's the Fiend, which is this sort of entity that takes over somebody's body when they are feeling intense negative emotion. In this case, it's this grandmother who blames Savage Dragon for what happened to her daughter. No, is it a grandmother and her granddaughter? Something like that. And the Fiend takes over her body and then attacks Savage Dragon, and has done it several times before these issues. But now Savage Dragon is kind of forced to deal with the fact that he has some blame this young woman's death. He has guilt, and this sort of evil taking over this innocent woman, or this angry, guilt-ridden woman, it churns up feelings in him. So it's a powerful storyline, those 2 issues. And they lead right into Dragon finally facing Overlord, the villain who's sort of been behind several dramas in his life up to now, and the sort of shining moment when he is able to hopefully finally defeat forever the villain. And I also love that this battle with the villain includes the villain's backstory. So we finally get to understand who Overlord is. It's a wonderful little series of panels where you get to see how does somebody become a horrible villain like this. This is an obvious event choice. I love this story, Civil War. Again, for me, it's the story. There is a really powerful topic of revealing your identity, who you are, and trusting somebody with that information. So of course, characters would come to odds over something so natural. So of course it would lead to this moment where two heroes they pivotally disagree on these ideas. Okay, so now I'm down to my last big event, which will be a DC one, and my last big indie book. Like I said, I'm a big Vertigo fan, and I do love Fables. I know that some people are like, well, it's fairy tales, I don't really want to do it. It's a girly book or whatever. I fully disagree, and I think if you read the first few trades, you definitely would catch up on it. This is trade number 3, which is called Storybook Love, which also sounds very girly, but is actually an incredibly powerful look at how love in a fairy tale is different than love in real life. It's 4 issues, issues 14 through 18, or through 17, sorry. And I only have 3 of them. But what happens here is a really great storyline between the big bad wolf and Snow White, who are set up to be murdered and are sort of placed in the wilderness. Then a villain is sent to hunt them down and kill them. So there's a really powerful hunt, chase through the wilderness, where they have to rely on their intelligence and the natural abilities that they have. The best part about it is the way in which Snow and the big bad wolf start to really understand one another, because they've been interested in each other maybe, or hated each other, or just not really gotten along very well. And then when you're stuck with each other, it's a great way to build that friendship. And it's a really well done storyline, and I fully recommend reading all of the Fables, but there's no way you get to number 3 and read that and then don't want to go on forever, because it is Storybook Love is that good. Identity Crisis. And it actually relates in a big way to Civil War, in that you're dealing with who do you trust with your secret identity. This is not a storyline where the villain is not Lex Luthor, right? Instead, the villain is your friend, right? The villain is this cover. I mean, I could talk forever just about this Michael Turner cover, which is insane. But the villain is your family, right? And that this issue is a powerful one in the storyline. And I love that, Batman is so useless, Superman is so useless. This storyline really highlights a lot of the smaller characters, the ones that maybe you don't, if you don't read DC, you don't know as well. Green Arrow, Flash, Zatanna, Hawkman. So I really, really appreciated this story and the twists and the ending. Again, it had a lasting impact on me. It felt like something from The Watchmen. It had a strong connection to me as far as the reality of being a hero in your family and how that works. This is part 3. I got 2 more to make. Hopefully I'll get to them soon. I just hit 100 followers thanks to Bueller and his video. So if you're new to the channel, please check in on some of the other pieces. I'll have the girls working with me. Kate's working on reading Batman Year One, which might be a little bit above her, but we'll give it a try just to have her experience something that I've loved for a really long time and see how she feels about it. Please leave a comment and like the video, subscribe if you haven't already, and have a good weekend.